Did you ever work for Bill Watts?
Yes, I did. He was one of the hardest guys to work for. He demanded so much that I didn't agree with a lot of stuff that he would do. I mean, his territory was good, but I didn't agree with a lot of the way he ran things and just how he picked his people, you know. To me, he was a tough guy, but he wanted to be surrounded by tough guys that made him, you know, like the king of the tough guy, which he had a lot of tough guys with him, but he wasn't all that talented, I didn't think, you know.
Did you ever witness any of the backstage fights that happened in that territory because he was known for letting them go?
No, I never saw any of there.
Who did you feud with when you were there?
They teamed me up with Wendell Cooley.
Okay.
And we were basically, because Rock and Roll Express had just left when we got there, and they tried to make me and Wendell the next Rock and Roll Express, and it's just, we weren't that small to do the high-flying stuff that they could do. And there was Dick Slater there I started feuding with after we split up, with Wendell and I. I started feuding with Dick Slater, Buzz Sawyer, Hacksaw Duggan. You know, we got a couple run-ins there with him. Jake Roberts. There was a lot of guys that were talented, but wasn't for me. That territory wasn't for me.
Was, I guess your only dealings with Junkyard Dog would have been in Mid-South, when you were in Mid-South?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the whole situation of how you were brought into Mid-South and the talent exchange that happened at that time?
Yeah, we had, when we brought Ricky and Robert and the Midnight Express and Jimmy Cornette, they had never seen people like them. I mean, JYD was the top babyface. Before that, for 10 years or 15 years, was Bill Watts. Look at the size of them guys. And then Jim Duggan, Hacksaw Butch Reed. So they were all monsters.
Right.
So I bring in a crew of little bitty fellas. I mean, compared to them, itty bitty fellas. Ricky Morton, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Taking the place of JYD, big black dude, kick ass, little white dude, blonde hair, sell his ass off. Two different kettles of fish, but it worked.
And how did you like dealing with Bill Watts? Because he was known for being definitely, there was no question he was the boss.
Yes, he was. But I mean, again, I liked him because I can be a little Bill Wattish too, I guess. If you're really passionate about what you're doing and somebody's screwing up, it doesn't matter what you say to him as long as you get it at, hey, you know, Bill was like that too. And I'm kind of like that. But he was 6'2" or whatever, 300 pounds, and I'm 5'7", 210. The guys look at you a little different, I guess, but it still means the same thing. I'm still the booker.
What was the money like in those days in that territory?
Unbelievable. When he come up here and looking for a crew and talking to Jerry Jarrett, I came into the office, so they were all sitting talking about it. So Bill says, well, my territory's on its backside. We got to do this, we got to do that, blah, blah, blah. So they talked about getting some of the boys to, Jarrett says to him, Bill Watts, if I was you before I leave this office today, I would talk to that little son of a bitch over there and see if he wants to come be your booker. Kind of looked at me and I kind of looked at him. So he called everybody stud back in them days. So he comes over to me and he sits down kind of like where we are. And he looks at me, he says, hey stud, you think you'd like to go to Louisiana? I said, well, yeah. He said, be the booker, work in the office? Yeah. He said, no, this is 1983. He says, I will guarantee you don't have a week below $3,000. Every week, $3,000. 4 3s is 12 grand a month. You know what I mean? Thing. So he said, yeah. He said, that'll be your worst week. 3 grand be the worst week. So what are you going to say? No.
Yeah, even today, that's good money.
Even today, yeah. So this is 83. So what do you? So
that'd be like 5,000.
Yeah, and I'm the boss. The pence. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll have the crew put together tonight. So I went and talked to Ricky and Robert and all the guys, and off we go to Louisiana. So I don't really know how would you, when we walked into Houston, or I think we all started off about Houston, Paul Bosch's town, they were all there, all the monsters, guys your size. And Ricky, Robert, me, Terry Taylor. Magnum TA was already there. So 6 guys, normal size like type guys walk in.
Yeah.
This is the crew. And Grizzly Smith is the
Yeah.
assistant booker. You know how big Grizzly is.
Yeah.
And Jake, that's his son, Jake Roberts. So.
And I'm friends with Sam, his other son.
Oh, yeah, Sam. I like Sam. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't know what the people thought. Well, look at the little bitty fellas. But my God, a month later, selling out everywhere.
Wow.
Unbelievable business.
Bill Watts, and they wasn't doing Oklahoma at the time. I left before they started doing Oklahoma. It was miserable. I was there with Paul Orndorff and Bob Roop and Junkyard Dog. It was great when you'd go into New Orleans with the dog. Who that said they're gonna beat that dog? And it was just fantastic. And I'd be working on the dog and people to start that chant, he'd get goosebumps. And I'd say, dog, take it easy now, take it easy. Because when he started getting them goosebumps, he'd get up and knock the shit out of you.
Yeah.
But I'd see them goosebumps, and dog, take it easy.
I heard there was serious problems with fan attacks there for wrestlers who were working them.
And you know, I don't. I know there were a couple of 3 towns down there you had to watch yourself. Houma, Louisiana, I know that's down there in the bayous, and them old boys down there, they like to fight, I guess. I remember fighting my way out of the ring a couple times in Houma, but not so much anywhere else.
Were those the days before Junkyard Dog got into his personal issues? Was he pretty good?
Personal issues, I know nothing about Junkyard Dog and personal issues. When I left Louisiana, he was still there, of course, and I didn't see him again until we were in New York together.
And what did you think about working for Bill Watts? A lot of people have varying stories. Some people love him, other people didn't like it.
Oh, to sit here and knock somebody and they're not here to defend themselves is probably not the right thing to do. But I wouldn't let Bill Watts watch my poke. I wouldn't let him watch my kids. But, what he did is what he did. God bless him for it, I don't care.
So you worked like every territory. You worked everywhere. Like you worked Pacific Northwest, like we talked about Georgia. You worked Mid-South for Bill Watts. What was it like working for Bill Watts?
I hate to say it, he's the biggest prick in the world.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, yeah, he screwed me big time. Me and Buzz, we tagged, right? And I got a $1,500 check, and my brother got a $3,000 check. For one night, it was a sold out play. That Bill Watts, he pissed me off, and he's like, "Oh, you got to give a 2-week notice." I said, "I ain't giving you shit." And I said, "Oh man, I was hot." I said, "What makes it?" I said, "We did the same thing." He was just being a dick. Thinking I was a rookie or something. I was far from a rookie, that's for sure.
What did you think of just that in general? Just like that, that's just what he did to people. They just
he did. He did. Everybody was always complaining about him, and I even questioned a few guys. I was like, "Well, he's going to help you." Like I'm not being contradicting myself, but he was a prick. I mean, I couldn't work like that. I didn't see that $1,500 difference. That's crazy. You got it. When you're in pro wrestling, if you don't walk out for that, the next time they'll be sticking it up your, where. So my brother taught me well, I have to say. Yeah. But he followed me 2 weeks after that.
Was Watts known for that? Known for?
Oh, yeah, he was known for that. I asked anybody that worked for him. Anybody that was there when I was, he was a prick. And I've heard guys tell me how nice he was. The other guy I did interviews. He was telling me, "Oh, man, he was a great guy." I was like, "Well, he wasn't a great guy to me." Yeah. And I know I wasn't the only one, so that's the only reason it didn't make me feel too bad. But I didn't want to work for him another day.
Get along with Bill Watts.
I got along with him. I mean, actually, one time we were going to the airport, some fan, this lady had, without my knowledge, stuck a pair of brass knucks in my bag. And I was going through the airport and one day with them, and my bag went through the machine, and also security, man, people were running, and blue lights and everything was, and they were ready like to arrest me. I had no idea there was brass knucks in my bag. And because Watts was so well known, he was able to calm everybody down and just, they just tossed them in the garbage can, and then we kept going. But I mean, he had a great territory going there. Gino Hernandez, Stan Hansen, DiBiase, Pork Chops Cash. And I mean, there was a huge amount of guys working for that territory. They had a great territory going. They did their TV in Shreveport, Louisiana. And they wound up putting me with Buck Robley, who was a complete screw up. And all you did was go from horse track to horse track all over the state, and then in between wrestling matches. And they put me with him. So it was a little bit difficult for me to get to the gym and get decent food. We didn't even stay in hotels that time. We slept in a car. And basically, I got the shit beat out of me. Pork Chops Cash spiked me on my shoulder, separated my shoulder. Mike, what's his name? The guy from that was in the New York territory that used to always take showers.
Oh, Mike Sharp.
Mike Sharp, Iron Mike Sharp, was in the territory, and Mike Sharp kind of befriended me and allowed me to stay at his apartment because I had nowhere to go because I couldn't work for a couple of weeks while I recouped, and they helped me out. Ivan Koloff was in the territory. Ivan was a super nice guy. I just ran into him recently, and I told him, I said, I'll never forget when these guys were beating the shit out of me. Gino Hernandez was one of them. They just took advantage of me. I was just, I guess, happened to a lot of guys. I mean, that's, I guess, a way of discouraging people, making you pay your dues. Well, buddy, I paid my dues. I suffered a lot of injuries and a lot of pain at the expense of those guys taking advantage of me as a young guy. And finally, I was having trouble working because I couldn't get to the gym. I had no money at all. I didn't have an apartment, didn't have a vehicle, and basically, I was in the world of trouble. And I got a call from Hulkster, and he's like, what's going on down there? I said, get me out of here, because otherwise I'm done, because they're going to kill me. They're going to just beat me to death. I'm not going to, I'll be injured to the point I won't be able to even work. And so he said, okay, go to the airport, and there'll be a ticket for you. So when I had talked to him, I gave Watts a notice. He always gave a 2-week notice. So I gave him my notice. And right before it was the last TV, right before I was going to leave, they came to me and said, oh, we want you to stay another 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, until they did another TV so they could job me out and just, boom, one more time. And I said, sorry, but I can't. I gave my notice the way you're supposed to, and I'm leaving. So Watts gave me the screw job, kept my money. So basically I had nothing, no money in my pocket.
He always withheld pay 2 weeks, right? From what I hear.
Yeah, they had some funny things going on there. Yeah, they really screwed me. I mean, I never had any money, hardly. They paid me nothing.
When exactly did that incident with you and John Nord happen in that territory?
I don't remember when I was leaving. I was going back home for a while. Bill Dundee got him to thinking that don't give me too much and don't let me control too much of that mat. Well, I did. I took what I wanted, took what I needed. After it's over, he still won the match. And after it's over, he just come in there and just wanted some of me. He didn't want it to be over. I said, it better be over. How you gonna just smother me, just eat me up? You don't do that. Nobody done that. Fight started. The bad thing about it, well, I beat on him. I knuckled him down. He backed off of me. And he said, Bush, wait till I get rid of this cold. We'll do it again. It's all, you ain't doing nothing to me again. It's over now. And that was it. There's all us to it. Just misunderstanding, and I blame Bill Dundee for that, for psyching this boy up, to push him off on me in the ring out there. That was very unprofessional, and I didn't like it. So that's the way that went.
And some people have also said over the years, I don't know if this is true or not, that Bill Watts kind of stirred it up a bit in the dressing room too.
Maybe, I don't know. But I know that little egotistical little shine killer, Bill Dundee, I know he was all up in it.
And one of the people that ran WCW in one of their least losing years was Bill Watts. And there's been a lot of controversy. Was he racist or not? In your opinion?
I don't know about what the racist. He said things that I would call how would I say it? I mean, he said things in the sense of a business owner should be allowed to be racist. He believed in the power of a business owner. So, I mean, it was, to me, it's like, he said, if I owned a restaurant and I didn't want to serve someone, the government shouldn't force me to do it. But it's like, I think that if you run a business, if you run a restaurant and you say, because of somebody's color or ethnicity, I'm not going to serve you, that's absolutely freaking horrible. And so I couldn't agree with that. I think that when it came to booking wrestling, no, he was not racist. Bill Watts was a guy who, when he was trying to promote wrestling, wanted to promote wrestling to the most people possible. If anything, he was he catered to ethnics more than almost anyone, because he thought that was the key to making money. So, again, personally, that's such a really hard question to answer. Some of the things he said are like I said, things that he said are things I could never agree with, and homophobic. I certainly perhaps, yeah.
You brought up Bill Watts' name. What did you think of that infamous record?
I stayed as far away from Bill Watts as I could when he was there. He ruled with an iron fist. His goal was he was brought in there to save money, and rumor is he got a percentage of every dollar he saved. So I didn't want him making money off of saving me. So if if Bill Watts was in that dressing room, I went to that dressing room. And if Bill Watts was out in front by the ring, I went back to the dressing room. I don't want to say I hid, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that.
Do you have any stories about him that you may have witnessed from that time?
No, it's just that at the time, everybody thought he was a genius. The stuff he did in Louisiana and Universal was so spot on. And we were all so excited that when they brought him on, thinking that this guy was going to be the savior, finally, we're going to find somebody who's a genius, who knows how to do pro wrestling. And then he did all this stuff like, you can't do moves off the top rope. When you had guys like Brian Pillman doing all this crazy stuff that was catching on, and a DQ, all kinds of DQ stuff, and he brought guys in, and I'm not going to mention their names that you wouldn't think would be the guys that would spark a territory. A lot of them were veterans, and it had their run and brought them back. So it was just strange because everybody celebrated, and then we watched what evolved and said, what happened to the guy that was supposed to come here? Because he's not here. It's a different guy.
And what did you think of his pushing of his son?
Look, Eric was a nice enough guy. He's, in those situations, I don't blame the kids. I blame the father. The father should. I don't know Bill Watts. He probably wouldn't know me if I walked up to him because I hid from him, like I told you. But his father knows better. You don't put a kid in that situation and push him down everybody's throat. I mean, not jumping ahead, but you can see what's going on with Roman Reigns now over the last couple of years and what happens when you try to push someone down your throat. And Roman Reigns has way more, I don't even want to say charisma because Eric was a charismatic guy, but way more experience and talent. And it wasn't that Eric didn't have talent. It's that nobody gave him a chance to learn the talent. They trained him for 3 weeks and put him out there and said, Michael Hayes, put him over. Arn Anderson, put him over. Bobby Eaton, make him look like $1 million. Which they did, but there's only so much you could do when the guy has no experience.
And you mentioned Arn Anderson putting him over. Rick Steiner told us a story about Scott kind of snapping backstage after Arn Anderson had to put Eric Watts over. And I guess Scott confronted Bill Watts and there was a blow up and that led to the Steiners leaving WCW. Were you around for that?
I sort of remember the altercation. I believe that was at a worldwide taping, and I was in the ring announcing, so I had just heard about it over the headset. But I normally would have avoided situations like that anyway. But I remember that Scotty left, and then a couple of weeks, 3 weeks later, Rick left that, and I think they went to the WWE after that. Look, guys like Arn and Bobby Eaton and Michael Hayes were very well respected guys. And it's not that you're asking them to put somebody over; it's you're asking them to put somebody over who has 2 weeks in the business and is the Booker's son. And everybody but the Booker knows he doesn't deserve it. Even Eric knew he didn't deserve it. So you had to feel bad for the guy. But Scott Steiner's a hothead. He's still a hothead. I still deal with him on the Legends of Wrestling stuff that I work with every once in a while, and he's still a hothead, and he could be. So you just have to deal with the personalities you're given. But yeah, I remember the story. I was in the ring when it happened.
Yeah, I guess it's a double-edged sword when you talk about Bill Watts. He was such a fucking bully and an asshole, man, and was really verbally abusive to people, just really nasty. And he ran his company with fear. He had everybody job scared or physically intimidated by him. He liked to play a bully. I guess the hardest thing about working for Bill Watts was laughing at all of his stories or nodding improvement that he kicked so-and-so's ass, and he kicked so-and-so's ass. Bullshit, man. Where do you bury your dead? But no, you learned a lot there. And Bill Watts, being from the Eddie Graham school of wrestling, always had finishes that were really involved. I think that's what's wrong with wrestling today is the finishes today are really poor. They don't make sense.
Right.
Back in the day, you built stuff in the finish. You built to a crescendo, and it made sense. And there wasn't wasted movement. There wasn't wasted moves. It wasn't bullshit. It was solid wrestling. So with that Eddie Graham mentality, I mean, brother, sometimes remembering a finish for him, it was incredible, man, because the finish might be 6 minutes long. Right. I mean, but they wanted to paint the picture, properly.
Is there any specific incidents of Bill Watts' bullying that?
Oh, God, yeah. God, yeah. Calling Ernie Ladd the N-word all the time, and others. I guess he got into trouble at WCW for talking to women the way he talked to women. He was, he said what he wanted to, and
I heard he liked to urinate off the balcony at the CNN Center as well.
I wouldn't doubt it,
How did your 1984 talent exchange with Bill Watts come about?
Hey, oh boy. Bill called me and said, I'm really in trouble. Can you come? Can I come up to see you? And over the years, Bill and I had conversations about our relationship with God. And so Bill knew that I was a very spiritual person. And he said, can I come see you? So I said, sure. So Bill came up and started the meeting by walking over to my desk and getting down on his knee and reaching to hold my hand, which is I don't know if you're religious or spiritual, but that's humbling yourself in that way is generally very revealing of what's in your soul. So he said a prayer, and then he got up and he said, I've really screwed up. My talent is lethargic and old, and I can't get a lot of people to come in because I've been a horse's ass, and I really need your help. And he said, I know that you're selling out every night of the week and have been for a year or longer. And I said, yeah, we're really blessed. And I said, Bill, my talent is totally, totally different from your talent. We have our wrestling is almost a fast forward compared to yours. And he said, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to change. So I said, all right, let me see what I can do. So I had at that time, it's funny how things work out. I had so much great talent that I was having to run 3 towns a night to make it work. To keep them all busy.
Right.
And that was taxing on all of us. We were just too big for our britches.
You were running 7 nights a week too, weren't you?
7 days a week, 2 and 3 matches a day. And so I said, okay, this crew will help you. So I sent him the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Terry Taylor. Oh, I can't remember who else. And Dundee, I said, you'll need a booker because you don't know how to promote this talent. So I had Dundee down. So then I got on the phone and called them all and said, it's not that I'm choosing anybody over you, but I want to help Bill survive. And you guys can do it, and in the process, you'll make a lot of money. So everybody, strange as it sounds, everybody said, whatever's best. Can I come back here when our run's over? Sure. And they popped his territory. I mean, really popped it. Has perhaps his best run. And maybe that wasn't good for him because he then thought he could compete nationally.
Because I was reading your book, A Story with You and Bill Watts.
Oh, I was in Florida for almost a week.
Okay.
But again, I think I was in New York for a while. And then back in those days, the territories, you do all the towns. So after a year or year and a half, people see you a lot. And you don't want them to see you too much because after 2 or 3 years of watching, say, I like this guy, but it's the same guy. Anybody new? get stale. So once in a while you'd leave and go somewhere for 5 or 6 months and then come back and then you're fresh again. So Bruno called up Bill Watts, who was booking for Eddie Graham, and wanted me to go to Florida for a while, to get out of New York for a while, and then come back again and do some real protege stuff. And the thing about Florida was, it was the only group in that day who had a television show that showed in Long Island. And so one territory showed in another territory, and everything else didn't. You had, separate. So the deal I had with Bill Watts was, I'll wrestle in Florida, but on television, I got to look good because I can't make Bruno look bad because it shows in New York. So to make a long story short, I went there for a couple of days. We come to the first TV show, and I'm booked against the Mongol, who was their number one heel. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get a good break, or this is going to be trouble. So I got what they wanted, to have done, and I went to Bill Watts and said, Bill, I can't do this on TV. This was the deal, make Bruno look bad. So Bill went, well, I'm going to have to fire you. So Bill Watts fires me. But in the meantime, Eddie Graham, who runs the place, hates Bruno, because Bruno threw Eddie Graham and Buddy Rogers and that clique out in New York in the old days. Because Eddie Graham saw me and he went, oh, you're Bruno's friend, huh? So I knew I was dead. So anyway, Bill Watts fires me, and here's the funny part. Jim Cornette ran the territory of Georgia with the new TBS show starting in Georgia. And Jim Barnett. Yeah. And the Omni was just built. And Jim Barnett had wanted Bruno to come down and be on the first Omni show. Worked out a deal with Vince, and Bruno agreed to do it, but he wasn't happy about doing it, didn't want to do it, didn't want to fly away and all that. And when Bill Watts fired me, because Eddie Graham told him to, because I wouldn't go along with the program, Bruno used that as an excuse to cancel out of the Omni because he didn't want to do it. So when Jim Barnett found that out, I got a call the day later. The grapevine was like this. What the hell did you fire Bruno's kid for? Now he won't come to the Omni. So I get a call from Barnett that flies me up to Atlanta the next day, Saturday morning, to meet with him and offer me a job. And I get 7 a.m, I get there, and there's all the guys passed out because they had an 8 o'clock live TV on Saturday mornings. It was an early show, and the night before they had a show. So the guys are all passed out. And one guy, Bearcat Wright, was a manager in Florida and a manager in Atlanta. And he was there when I told Bill Watts I'm not going to do it. And I was very polite, going, excuse me, sir, but I just can't. That wasn't the deal. I'm sorry. Right. So now we're in this little room, bunch of guys. Bearcat Wright sees me come in, and he stands up. And as Bearcat Wright stands up and starts talking, Jim Barnett and Bill Watts come out of a hallway and are standing right behind Bearcat as Bearcat yells to all the guys, hey guys, this is the kid that told Bill Watts to go F himself. And Bill's standing right there. And no one laughed because they all went, oh, Jesus. And Bearcat's going no one popped over that? And he went, oh, and then he saw Bill Watts standing there once. So Bill Watts and Barnett take me in a room, and Jim Barnett goes, oh, you're a good-looking boy, and I really like to have you work here. I'll give you $500 a week, which back then was decent money for a beginner. And, but he's doing it only to get Bruno to make the Omni. So I wound up with a job there, and now Bill Watts says to me, and he's made to apologize to me, so Bruno will be happy. And
because he told you something that Bruno lied to you, which Bruno...
Yeah, because he said something, no, Bruno lied to you about that deal. I went, no, that's the deal. But then Bill Watts looks at me and he goes, I'm sorry, I had to fire you. You're a good kid. I'm sorry. Eddie made me do it. And he's biting his tongue because he wants to kill me. Bill Watts is an asshole, and he wants to punch me out. But he has to apologize so Bruno will come to the Omni. So you can say, oh, he hated my guts. It was great. He was an asshole, and he was proud of it. He was a guy that he screwed up, the WCW stuff for a while, pushing Eric Watts down your throat. But at the same time, you got this big corporate structure that had no idea what pro wrestling was. And you got Bill Watts running it, and he was up on the, like, I don't know, 10th floor or whatever, 14th floor. And he's standing on his balcony and he's taking a pee over the balcony. 14 floors down below him, there's the food court. I mean, and then the violence, and plus the language he used, to belittle, and you can't do that in corporate people, to talk the way he did. So, I mean, the TBS people after 6 months were horrified and finally got rid of him.
So you went to Bill Watts' territory. How did you like it there?
I liked it. It was warmer from up here. But no, I went down there in the wintertime. I can't remember exactly when I went down there. They were shooting the TV at Shreveport, Louisiana, Dr. Death, Hacksaw, Junkyard Dog, all the guys were there. Went down there and got some experience. Different from up here. I didn't have any experience up here and was trying to learn. Back then, you had to learn that psychology, and it was tough. It took me 2-3 years to catch on. So I really didn't catch. I was probably with Bill Watts for probably I'd say a year or two, and then he sold out the Dusty Rhodes and the Crockett's territory.
Yeah, they bought
UWF. So they bought it out. So I went from one and then went to the other one, Sting and I, and that's when I started catching on.
Did you get along with Bill Watts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got along with Bill. He was great to me. He's another one. He liked the amateur guys. He had Dr. Death and all those guys in there. So he kind of prided himself on being an Oklahoma boy. He prided himself on having some wrestling experience.
Yeah.
He liked to push the envelope a little bit. But yeah, I got along with him great.
There was always the rumor that he was racist, even though he pushed a lot of black athletes. Did you ever notice anything like that?
You know what? I never noticed. Even when I was with him in the Mid-South, Junkyard Dog, he put him on top and pushed the crap out of him. And as long as I knew Bill, if he could make money with you, he used you. There was never that, that personal vendetta for anyone. If he could make money with you, he was going to make money with you. And I think there was a few. I mean, Shell, Birdman was down there. We had half the roster was down there.
What was that incident where something happened with your brother roughing up his son at one point? Was that in WCW later on? Yeah.
Bill had his son, and Eric wrestled Arn Anderson, and he did something and it hurt Arn. And my brother was pissed, so he went in and confronted Bill to his face. And he was pissed off, and they were gonna go at it. And then, some of the office administration people from Ted Turner come in and they stopped it. Well, then that's when the writing was on the wall. It was time we needed to go, and that's how my brother. They said they were going to renew mine, but they didn't renew my brother. Well, I wasn't going to do anything unless I did with my brother, so we went up to Vince.
And with Bill Watts, that's when you first started teaming with Sting, right?
Yeah. Of course, Sting came in with Hellwig, they were
the Blade Runners.
Blade Runners, yeah. And then of course, Jim went to Texas World Class Wrestling and started doing it there. So then they teamed Sting and I up with Eddie Gilbert and Missy Hyatt and all that. And
what did you think of Missy Hyatt?
She's crazy. She's crazy. Yeah. When Sting and I first came in, they put us together. She was with Jack Tatum, and then she was with Eddie. She was, and Eddie was the booker for Bill. So he made sure he took care of her. But yeah, she was crazy.
Did you ever work the Mid-South territory?
The Mid-South?
For Bill Watts?
Yeah. I worked that in 85. I went over there. I had an airplane. Okay. And the only way I could make any money, I figured, is I worked double shots a night. So with an airplane, I could. I'd work the first match in one town, fly to the other, wrestle the main event. There's no bull. And of course, not every night. Maybe some weeks it was 3 nights. One week could be 4 nights, another week 2 nights. But, I worked probably, I'd say a good 9 times a week.
And that territory would have been really hot around that time.
Oh yeah, it was good. It's good. I remember working Jackson first match, make good money, place would be packed. I'd be in Baton Rouge, main event. The cops would pick me up at the airport with the light on and the siren, my tights on, and I'd walk right into the building, barely on time a few times. They were about to send somebody else, because they were in the ring waiting.
Right.
And because somebody had called, hey, they're on their way. The cops picked them up. And it was stressful. I only did it for 5 months because it was hard.
Did you ever face the Junkyard Dog there?
No, I was a heel too. No, he was babyface. No, I never. Who did I work with? Mantell was a champion. I worked with Mantell, and it was. But I think you had 2 towns a night. You know, it was a lot of traveling. But with the plane, I didn't even have a car. I flew my plane and.
And did you get along with Bill Watts when you worked?
Well, I knew him from way back when I was in Oklahoma, when he was barely starting too.
Right.
He was out of college and all that. I just did a short stint there, 2 or 3 months, and that's where he was.
What did you think of him as a promoter and booker? He was one of the legendary.
I got along with him, and he even borrowed my plane one night to go get some guy.
That's good.
It is what it is. Bill Watts is a racism. You know what I mean? But I'm going to tell you, like Bill Watts told me, he says, look, I'm a racist, and I might call you a nigga, maybe once, maybe twice. But I'm going to tell you right now, I know how to make money. And that's what he's seen. He knew that he could make money with me or anybody else that he put in there, whether it's Junkyard Dog, Ron Simmons, or whoever it was that he put in there. He knew that he could make money with it. But the bottom line is, he's still prejudiced.
Was the music video that kind of introduced you to WCW his idea?
To be honest with you, I really don't know if that was his idea, but all I know is it was Michael P.S. Hayes who put it all together. I have to give my props to him. He was the one, him, Teddy Long, was the one who went and got the girls. They was the one who did the super video. And Michael and his group, his band, was the one who put the beat together and stuff, which I thought was, fabulous. People say a lot of things about Michael Hayes being prejudiced or whatever he was, but a lot of people that was prejudiced in the business, I had them taking me under their wing. And which was unusual, probably because of my talent or my skills. But with Michael Hayes and I'm taking that on himself to make that story, that basically made me.
What did you think of Bill Watts meeting him? Because he's very controversial.
Yeah. If you ever heard any interviews from me, you hear me mention Bill Watts 1,000 times in the interviews. Looking back at the time, as a kid, a young, scared kid in the dressing room, he's a very intimidating guy. I was about 6'1", 205 at the time, maybe. Bill's 6'3", 6'4", 320, big guy. His pinkies are like my thumbs and very intimidating, imposing. A loud, boisterous, larger-than-life character. And but there wasn't a lot of interaction with Bill initially. You rarely saw him around, certainly not at the house shows. But at the TV tapings, the first TV taping we had, I'd wrestled the first match with Eddie Gilbert, and of course I didn't call a thing. It was Eddie calling everything. And I came back to the curtain, and I remember just having this feeling of floating, like I'm finally working for a company, and I'm going to be a big star. This is great. And I came through, I'm taking my tape off, and I looked straight ahead, and Bill, the dressing room door was to the right. Bill's standing there with his hands on his hips, like sort of cocked to one side. And he had that strange look on his face, and I didn't say anything. As I walked toward him to go past him in the dressing room, I gave him like a heads up, like, what's up? I didn't say anything. And I went to walk by him. As I took a step into the dressing room, he goes, what the fuck was that? And I stopped dead in my tracks, and in my head, I'm thinking, like, is he serious? And what's he? Not that I knew what a good or bad match was, but it felt like it was a good match. Eddie called it. I didn't say a thing. And I quickly settled on he's ribbing me. It's my first night. He's jacking me a little bit, So I was going to look at him and say, nice rib. And I never, spoke a word or a syllable. I looked at him, I got was a smile out. And he came at me like a bear and slammed into the wall, his face right here, poking me in the sternum hard. And I remember, but he wasn't saying, you piece of shit, you suck, you get the fuck out. It wasn't that. But it was, don't ever turn your fucking back to the camera. If the goddamn camera doesn't see it, it means the people at home don't see you, which means you don't draw me fucking money. He was yelling specific instructions to me. And I had coaches, not that assertive, but in that vein, I never liked it. But I knew, what he was trying to do, teach me. Very intimidating. But I learned from him, and I didn't know that till years later. Years later, I'd catch myself telling stories, and I'd say, well, like Bill Watts taught me, if you don't face the camera, and I'd hear myself invoking Bill Watts' name over and over and over again. And I thought, well, I must have picked something up from him. It was my break into the business. And, I just saw Bill, ironically, a few years ago. I hadn't seen him since WCW days. And, Bill was always a very tense person, just always looked like a very angry person. And I saw him, and he looked great physically. He had slimmed down, but here he looked at peace, at ease. And I thought, what was it, Bill? You look fantastic. And how are you? It's great to see you. That was not Bill from back then. Bill didn't give a shit. Get the fuck out of here. So it was really nice for me to see Bill and see that he's doing so well and found peace in his life.
And you mentioned Bill Watts. He had a legendary territory, Mid-South Wrestling, that you were a part of. What's your memories of working for him and working in that territory?
I'll tell you, when I went to Atlanta the first time, that's when the Road Warriors were there, and they were just starting to get over. And the first night I was there, I didn't know how to wrestle. I couldn't work a lick. I was terrible. But I could get along. The first night I was there, I was partners with Stan Hansen, and we were at the Omni. And I was man-mountain Darso, and I carried an axe with me. And we were wrestling the Road Warriors, and it's a sellout crowd in the Omni, and the people are nuts in Atlanta. And I remember Stan Hansen saying, Barry, don't bring that axe around me. Just put it in the corner and you follow my lead. Well, I didn't know what was going on. Stan Hansen went in there and threw that bell around. Road Warriors took off. That was the end of the match. And I thought, holy cow, I got a payday for this. And I'm thinking, this is the greatest territory. Well, Ole ended up sending me to Bill Watts to learn how to work. So when I went to Bill Watts, he took me in. I went down to the ring with George Weinkrauf and Art Cruz just about every day. They got me on the mats. They trained me different ways and, really got me going. And I, wrestled Terry Taylor, the Junkyard Dog, Jim Duggan, Rock and Roll Express, and it was just a great territory for learning. And you worked every night, double shot Saturdays, double shot Sundays. And if you didn't work right, Bill Watts would kick you in the ass, and that's the kind of guy I was. I needed a guy like that to really teach. And Ernie Ladd was down there, Grizzly Smith. It was just the best territory to learn. When I left there, now I could say, hey, I was a pro wrestler. After 2 years in the business, wrestling everywhere with all these guys, I didn't learn until I went to Mid-South. Now I was comfortable going anywhere and wrestling anybody. So that's Bill Watts. That was his territory.
And you were a Russian there, teaming a lot with Nikolai Volkov. What are your memories of him?
Well, when I was there, I was a babyface. I was Crusher Darso, and I was terrible. Started kind of coming into my own, and Bill Watts said to me, he says, Barry, the only way you're going to really make it here is you got to become a heel. And he says, we're going to make you a Russian turncoat. Back at that time, everybody in America hated Russians. So he says, you're going to be partners with Nikolai Volkov. You're going to take this shovel and you're going to bury all the Americans. And I just went, holy cow. And a couple years in the business, I'm thinking, this is pretty serious stuff here, And it ended up working. I ended up being a heel, and that's why I worked with Terry Taylor, who was phenomenal in the ring. He taught me so much. Then, Jim Duggan, and, it just ended up, that made my career being with Nikolai Volkov, because I learned a lot with Nikolai. And from there on, that's when my whole career started going uphill.
Is it true that Bill Watts had a clause in his contract that if he quit, he wouldn't be continued to pay? He get paid, but if he got fired, he would still have to be paid the remainder of his contract. So he purposely may have gotten himself fired from WCW.
He was there, my last year he was around 6-9 months, something like that. He was in charge, and really about all I didn't do 6, 7, 8 months. All I did was TVs.
Right.
That's all I did was TV. I hardly did any house shows, and guys' contracts were finishing up, and he was finishing everybody up. And I think a lot of guys might have took cuts in pay. And for what money he saved the company, supposedly he got paid, had an incentive in there. And I think he got in trouble with something about Hank Aaron, something about a racial sort. Now, I'm not saying he did. I don't know that. But Bill Watts was always good to me. I mean, he was fair. He was an asshole to everybody.
Apparently it wasn't a racial slur. Apparently he said he felt that if business owners didn't want to serve blacks, it was their right to not serve blacks. Something like that. People considered it bad because he said that a business owner should have a right to deny service to someone, I guess. So
which I don't agree with that either, but it's not for me to decide. But he put the belt on Ron Simmons, pushed Ron, and did, and of course he made Junkyard Dog and everything. He had that coach type mentality, and on time, fine you, things like that, making everybody stay for the main event, old school mentality, everything that he did. He ran a tight ship. Very demanding, and very smart, and but I'd heard that about the incentive thing, that do, and whatever deal he made when he went in, that was his job, was to save him money, and then I don't know what he made on the back end off of that. He did, but that's what he was hired for, so, and a lot of guys got hot, you know what I mean? A lot of guys got hot, and I kind of knew when he come in, he more or less told us, Terry Taylor, Ricky Morton, Tommy Rich, myself, a few other guys, it was 7, 8, 10 more. The contracts were close to coming up, and he told us they weren't going to renew us, and they didn't have any plans, and we kind of all, he didn't lie to us, but I just got custody of my son, so it was kind of a blessing in disguise that I was a single father, and then when I was on the road, my mom and dad were keeping my oldest son, Kyle, I was grateful to have that and to have guaranteed money coming in, and get, to bond with my son. He was a year old,
Was Jim Ross working backstage at that time too, or was he just an announcer? Really,
he was at one time kind of on that committee type thing and had a say so kind of, but he did, but not so much, but he had some input, I believe,